Hey guys, it's been a while since I've done a video, so I thought I'd start off with a quite in-depth discussion on conditions. I've been playing a lot of PvP recently, and still keeping up with my PvE side of stuff, so I've been thinking about conditions as a whole, and why I actually like them and dislike them at the same time. Now, first of all, I think conditions are really strong in the game, but poorly implemented. Now, there is a reason for this, and this is exactly what that video is going to be about. Just in the background, I've just got some footage of me doing some random events in the Harathi hinterlands. I don't think I needed much footage for this because it's a discussion video, so I just thought I'd put something a little bit different in there. It's the chain event to the world boss that's now spawning at certain times. So, first of all, the reason that I think conditions are very poorly designed is because it's a little bit ridiculous that you can stack the same amount of damage onto a player with, say, 20,000 health as a world boss with, say, 20 million health, right? And it doesn't matter how many people are around at the time. 5 people can stack up the same condition damage as, for example, 125 people can on Jormag, and it still caps out at the same point, and it will still do the same amount of damage, and then everyone's left behind waiting for it. Now, the easiest way to change that, I guess, is not actually that easy at all, because they've put in a artificial cap, and I think it is to keep players alive during PvP, but it doesn't really work in PvE. Is to, I guess they're going to have to split, if they want to do it, split conditions in PvE and PvP. Now, the other thing I don't like about conditions at the moment is I don't like the damaging conditions as a whole. I don't think that the way they've planned condition is very good for PvP, and there is a reason for that. I don't like the Condi meta, right? A lot of people will say that. I actually play an engineer, and I don't play condition based engineer because I think personally that the Condi meta is so weird at the moment, because I personally think it's a zero skill cap style gameplay. It's a lot of people argue against this, but I like the idea. I think it's poorly implemented though. So, for example, most people, when they go into a point on PvP, it's Conquest, it'll be Engineers and Necros just spamming AoE conditions down, and the only way you can counter that is to spam your Condi clear and hope that they go down before you do. It's not really a game of skill at that point. It's what can I spam, how quickly can I spam it, and how long can I keep myself alive with the Condi clear. Now, there are certain skills that are counter to that. For example, I love the fact that there's a lot of boon and Condi manipulation going on in classes, and that's where I think we need to, or ArenaNet personally, need to go into the idea that that's exactly what conditions should be. It should be about manipulating boons and doing attrition based combat, not so much not so much the, trying to think of the word now, spike damage. There we go. Spike damage is, in my eyes, that should definitely be pure power, right? This way that bunkers at the moment, they're kind of useless as soon as you get a Condi class, and it's actually causing more people to go, well, I need to bunker down because otherwise I'm just going to get Condi spammed. And if you're a certain class that doesn't have a lot of Condi removal, you end up double bunkering, and then it becomes impossible for power people to even get involved in the game, and you end up with weird situations where you just end up with stun spams and Condi clears, and just literally you're not doing anything so reactive anymore. You're just, oh well, I need to spam more condis on this person and clear mine off as quick as possible, because in 2 seconds they're going to put them all back up again, right? As you can see in the background at the moment, I'm literally throwing nades, and you can see how quickly I'm stacking up condition damage. Well, that doesn't affect PvE, because there's going to be a lot of people and they've got rather large health pools, but in PvP you end up with 5 people on a point and I'm doing the same damage to them. I've got no issues about it, and all I'm doing is pressing 1 and throwing it away. As long as I'm not being focused, I can keep that damage up. If there's 1 of me, it's not too bad. If there's 2 of me, or 2 engineers doing the same thing, there's no way that anyone on that point is going to survive. It's complete point denial. That being said, there are conditions in the game that I think are fantastic and are totally underused for PvP. My 2 favourites, actually, are Confusion and Torment. Torment is a fantastic condition for PvP, and I don't think it's utilised enough. I would much rather have people putting Torment on me during a game than Bleed. Bleed is just constantly ticking, quite high damage, doing a lot, but there's no way to really counter it without Condi cleanses. But it goes on so quickly. Torment, on the other hand, if you stand still, you reduce your damage, right? That is a counter play to it. You can reduce the amount of damage you take by standing still. Now that means you either stand still, stand in AoE, or open yourself up to, say, a thief with backstab to kill you, or you can run away to avoid that AoE, but you're going to take more damage from Torment. So you have an option, you have a choice to make. Confusion is the same. You can sit there and spam your abilities, but if you had long stacks of Confusion, you have to tactically use your Condi cleanse to remove that confusion so you can start using your abilities again. This is all part of PvP that people love to play. People love the idea that you can tactically move stuff, and if you play with skill, you can get away with so much more than if you just spam all your buttons. Now, there is a lot of problems with Condi in PvP. The problem is that Condis appear so frequently and on such short cooldowns that Condi clear isn't effective, or is too effective because of all the passive Condi clear. My suggestion for changing all of that would be to increase condition duration. I would much rather have a 20-minute bleed on me that would stack up gradually over time, so say every 10 seconds, and would just constantly tick up, right? And then that time the bleed is doing more damage, more damage, more damage. Okay, now I've got to choose when I can Condi cleanse. So even every 6 seconds. But at the moment, it's some classes can put on conditions at a horrible rate. I mean, 25 stacks of bleed in 2 seconds from a warrior sometimes is ridiculous. I mean, there's no way you can counter that, right? And seeing though that's on a 6-second cooldown, your Condi cleanse has got no real effectiveness, and you're dead, really. There's no way to counter it. I mean, you can try and dodge out of it, but again, it's one of those things that you can try and dodge and avoid, and as long as you can, but again, it's not an attrition based. I would much rather conditions went on 100% of the time and just constantly ticked over, and Condi cleanses were removed on short cooldowns as well, and you had the 45-second Condi cleanses and the 40-second boon removals and all these things that you could do that are so fantastic in the game. You would end up with more, like I say, more of a skill-based idea. The other thing to compare that to would be, it would open up the game as well to so many more classes. For example, bunkers would be really strong, right? But you couldn't have one Condi class come in and take out 2 bunkers quite happily. That's a problem that you find. If you might bunker down on one point, and then one Necro or one Engie complete Condi base can come in, completely destroy the point, and wipe out your bunker's health, because there's no real counter to it beyond Condi cleanse spamming. But like I said, with those types of abilities, it doesn't matter if you Condi cleanse. I mean, my engineer can put all the stacks back on you Condi cleanse as quickly as he put them on in the first place. You know, it's not a good thing. Poison is another fantastic ability. It ticks for not a lot of damage, but it reduces your heal capability. That's an attrition based. You know, if you're constantly ticking up your health and suddenly it reduces the power by 33%, if someone comes in to spike you with power, you haven't got enough time or, you know, enough oomph to bring yourself back up to that full health. I actually think it's a little bit underpowered on that basis. I think it should be more of a 50% heal reduction, but then again on longer cooldowns. None of this poison on auto attacks and poison on standard abilities. This would only work in PvP. Torments, poisons, I would quite like to see burn have its overall damage reduced slightly, but every tick of it puts vulnerability on at the same time. You know, just that extra bit of damage, or its own form of vulnerability, not vulnerability itself, but so, you know, a burn type vulnerability that increases all damage you take from all sources, and that means that you have to tactically cleanse off all those conditions at the right time to give yourself the effective edge that you need. When it comes to PvE, I think that all world bosses should have a debuff that gets put on when they reach a stack, right? So when they reach the 25 stacks as well, it should be that everything in PvE gets this buff, which could be built into Defiance, because that's exactly where the issue lies. Where when you hit that point, potentially all of your condition damage could become power, or a percentage of your condition damage becomes power based on, say, your Condi duration. So if you have 70% Condi duration, 70% of your Condi damage becomes power once the boss hits say 25 stacks of bleed. Every bleed you put on now hits instantly at full power and give you that boost. So that means you get direct damage. So it would open up class variation as well, because I hate going into a dungeon and suddenly I'm semi-Condi based, I'm a Celestial build, so I actually run everything. But because I'm Nades, I've made it a little bit more Condi based. If I go in with a pure Condi class, 90% of my conditions are pointless. It's not even worth having that on. But luckily I still do damage with my power. My power is still relatively high. But if unluckily we queued up and there was 4 other Condi classes, or 5 Condi classes in a dungeon, we hit the cap instantly and we're all just waiting for the condition damage to tick down, and it takes ages for anything to die. It becomes a really long fight, and if you're condition based, you don't have the pure survivability idea. I mean, unless you go dire, you still don't have survivability. You're there, and eventually the boss is going to tick you down before you get a chance. You just have to keep running around, keep applying the conditions, and just make sure that they're all up, all the stacks are up, and you just run around like chickens waiting for the boss to die. It's no longer fun. It's watch these numbers just tick over and over and over, and you eventually kill the boss. It's a weird way, especially on world bosses, when you know, it's all about power. You can't crit them, you can't do other things, but this would give Condi classes a little bit extra. This is a bit of a weird discussion because it sounds like a moan, but I think conditions are really well done in this game. It's actually a great idea that they do have a cap. It's fantastic that they're all these conditions. I just think we have the wrong ones used in certain aspects of the game. Like I said, Torment is such a fantastic condition. I don't think it's utilised enough on auto attack. Like I said, it's very skill based as well. It's very reactive. You have to decide whether you want to eat all the, you know, have those constant torment stacks coming up and stand still, or clear them all so then you can start moving again. Long cooldowns is really what we need for conditions in PvP, and they need to be attrition based. Attrition is definitely the way Condi should be working. They shouldn't be, oh, let's just go in, Condi spike the bunker and then leave. If it takes you 2 seconds to kill a bunker with Condis, then you may say that the bunker's poorly designed, but I've seen players, like 2 players, go in and wipe out 3 bunkers with no issue. If there's only 1 bunker on point, it wipes out 1 bunker. If there's 3, it wipes out 3. If there's 5 people, it wipes out 5. There's no cap to how fast they can spread conditions to an area, and that's where the problem lies. If you end up in a fight in mid, and you 4-man fight in mid, and you didn't bring any conditions, and the other team did, you're going to lose. It doesn't matter how power based you are built, how much Condi cleanse you built, you're going to lose eventually. It doesn't. There's no skill involved, because, like you can see going on in the background, you can see how quickly I'm spamming out damage, spamming out conditions, and just getting that damage into point. It would also mean that you'd have to change the way that points worked, because obviously if you got a bunker just sat down on point and it takes you 10 minutes to eventually get the attrition down on the bunkers to get them killed, it's gonna be impossible to do. But that's why I think we need to start going back to the high damage Zerker meta in PvP, sorry. The reason is, I think that one bunker should be taken out quite happily by 2 Zerks, right? If you survive against those 2 Zerks, right, it's gonna be, you are a very good player, you are able to dodge, you're able to keep that damage off you for as long as possible, and that's where, you know, you would have the attrition player come in as well. So he would put down bleeds and vulnerabilities, so you take more damage, you reduce your healing, you do that. If you want to avoid the damage, you're going to be taking lots of torment. It's going to be one of those things that means that 2 players can take out 1 bunker quite happily, as long as they focus. Cleave damage and whatever on points would work really well, but we'd get rid of the idea that you could just sit off point and go, everything in that area is dead, I'm going to move on now. It's taken me 10 seconds to wipe out all of those people. It's, as I said, confusions, poison, torment, fantastic conditions. Burning to a certain extent. Burning condition I quite like. It ticks hard, but it's one condition and you know that it's going to be there, and you have to choose when you tactically cleanse it. Bleeds, on the other hand, stack up so quickly, so early, so fast, all the time, that, you know, you might cleanse off 25 stacks, but then in 2 seconds 25 stacks are back on you. There's not a lot you can do about it. It's a poor condition for PvP, and I think it needs to personally be replaced with Torment, and then we can have the good games where, you know, you go to a bunker point and you see 2 bunkers and you think, oh, instead of just, I have to hit this point and put all the damage down across the area, hit both bunkers equally and they will both go down. It's right, we need to focus one down and then focus down the other. This would mean that point caps would be more difficult, but it would mean that you'd have to have a decent spread of comp as well. It would get rid of the Condi tanks idea as well, because Condi tanks are personally the worst thing in the game. I love power tanks. Power tanks I think are really good because you can avoid all their damage. It's not going to be constantly hitting you. But a Condi tank that just sits on point and does what I'm doing now in the background, spamming grenades out. You know, if you're a thief or, you know, Mesmer, whatever, your clones are going to get lots of damage. You're going to have lots of area denial and lots of damage going out, and there's not going to be a lot you can do to counter it. It doesn't matter how much toughness you have or vitality or anything, you're going to lose. If you can burst them down before they do that, that's fine, but 9 times out of 10 you're not going to, because they're a tank. And this is exactly why I think conditions need to be changed, and we need to have a switch up of longer condition durations, more focus on conditions that have an effective, easy counter, but mean that you lose something else. Trade-off plays are fantastic. Like I said, Torment is... I keep going on about Torment because I think it's the better condition to bleeding. It doesn't work in PvE because, you know, most mobs stand there and just, you know, you push them into a corner and it does no damage. But in PvP, players can't stand still too long. They have to be moving around, and that increases the damage phenomenally. I would much rather see a Torment tick in PvP tick for, even with 25, if I had 25 stacks of Torment on, was stood still, it ticked for 250, right? But if I started moving and it was ticking for 2,500, I would have to seriously consider cleansing that thing off, right? I couldn't just bounce around constantly avoiding all the main damage that the Zerkers are putting out, because I'd be taking too much damage from Torment and it'd be ticking too fast. You know, increasing the damage 10 times for moving isn't unreasonable, because it means that you have to tactically choose. The same with Poison, the same with Poison being the heal denial, the same with Confusion stopping you using your abilities. The only change I would use to say Confusion is that if you used a Condi cleanse ability, it would heal you based back on the Confusion. So for example, if the Confusion took off 3,000 through a Condi cleanse, it would take off the condition before it did the damage. That would mean that, you know, you're not at 3,500 health and you had to get rid of it. And it's going to kill you. That being said, still like the idea that Confusion hits in that point, because it would stop you waiting till the last minute to remove Confusion. But I think it's a little bit of a, you know, that would make it too strong if it worked off your one Condi cleanse ability. The other thing the final thing that I will say is that there would need to be more of a focus on which conditions you've removed and how to remove them. I think there are a lot of things that could work very well. Like, one of the suggestions I had from a guildie was burning every tick puts up, because we were talking about this, every tick puts on vulnerability but has a 50% chance to remove a stack of bleed, because it would say cauterize the wound. That would also mean that people wouldn't spam conditions over each other and go, oh, if I just put all the conditions on, he'll have all the conditions, there's nothing I have to counter. It's, oh, I've got 25 stacks of bleed on at the moment, I could put burning on now and manage to keep it at the 25 stacks of bleed, rather than at the beginning I'll put burning bleed on and I'll constantly stack up bleed as well. If it was burning off those bleed stacks, you'd think, well, actually my burning's not that good, I don't want to put burning on. Right, okay, I've got to coordinate with someone else in my team to not put burning on as well, or I need to put bleed on someone else while my teammate puts burning on a different character. So that's my ideas for Condi damage. I personally think it's a great way of playing the game. Conditions is a really good thing in the game, but I think in PvP at least it should be more attrition, less spike. I would love to see the Zerker spike builds come back and be able to play, because like I said, I don't like Condi Spike. I think Condi Spike is such a bad way of playing this game, and it causes so much problems for people that want to play the Zerker. It closes off so many builds, and everyone goes for the meta idea of, oh, okay, let's go Condi Tank. Right, okay, Condi Tank, I can put out huge damage and survive for ages, and the only way someone's going to beat me is to out-Condi me and hope for the best. So, but anywho guys, I think that's a long enough video on my discussion of conditions in the game. I'll be putting up a few more over the next week or so. I apologise for taking so long with this video. I've been playing a lot of PvP, doing a couple of tournaments. I actually entered the Tournament of Legends and hosted my own tournament. So there'll be more of those coming up soon, and hopefully with the Living Story patches coming in, I will be adding more videos then. So thanks for watching, and I will speak to you all later. Bye bye.